So welcome to the call, everyone. Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Chef AJ, and this is our last teleclass of the year because I'm going to be leaving in a few days to spend the rest of the year as a guest chef and lecturer at True North Health at their holiday health extravaganza. If you've never been to True North, I highly recommend it. If you would like to find out more about it, just listen to one of the replays of these teleclasses when we had Dr. Goldhammer on as a guest. To make up for the fact that we'll be missing the next 2 weeks because Christmas is on a Thursday, New Year's is on a Thursday, Thanksgiving was on a Thursday, and I missed a Thursday because I was at Rancho La Puerta. I'm going to be doing double the classes the first 5 weeks of the year. So not only will we have our usual 6 p.m. slot, 6 p.m. Pacific time, that is, for the teleclasses, but we'll be doing a bonus class for the first 5 weeks of the year, Tuesday at the same time. We'll be starting the new year off with a bang with the father of modern nutrition, Dr. T. Colin Campbell, the author of the China Study, on Tuesday, January 6th, and on Thursday, January 8th, we'll be having Dr. Doug Lisle, the co-author of The Pleasure Trap. We'll also be interviewing a lot of people in January that aren't necessarily plant-based, but they have some really good information to share on the subject of food addiction and the science of sugar addiction. So I think you'll be enjoying what they have to say as well. The best way to find out about these teleclasses, if you're not on my mailing list, please sign up at www.eatunprocessed.com. That way you can ask our experts questions, and the people on the mailing list do get priority than the questions that come in from other ways, such as Facebook. So tonight our guest is Rae Sikora. Now, you may not have heard about her, but she should be president of vegan, if there's such a thing. Or she should be the queen of vegan along with John Pierre as the king of vegan. I first met Rae in the summer of 2011, the very first time I went to Vegetarian Summerfest in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Now, if you're plant-based or you're just curious about being plant-based, that's another event that I highly recommend you go to at least once in your life, if not every year, because most people that go end up going every single year. I think it's been going on for about 40 years. It was one of the first days I was there, and I didn't know who this woman was, and she did this plenary, and she just blew me away. She moved me to tears, not so much like in a sad way, but just Rae is one of those people that just makes me want to be a better person, like John Pierre. There's just certain people, like if you've ever heard of this spiritual leader named Amma, I've never heard of her, but people wait in line for hours just to be hugged by her. That's what Rae is for me. And, you know, on these calls for the last few weeks, I've been asking just about every speaker who inspired them the most. And we get wonderful answers like, you know, different doctors in the plant-based movement or personal people that people know. And if I'm the host, so I don't get to answer these fun questions. But if you had asked me who inspires me the most in life, I would say not living, it would have been Viktor Frankl, the author of Man's Search for Meaning, wonderful book, and Rosa Parks. But the two people that inspire me both that are living, one has already been on the program, John Pierre, is Rae. You know, I do believe that healthy living starts with healthy eating. But even if you go to the gym every day and eat kale all day long, what good is it if you're still an asshole? And and it's true because, you know, I hate to say it, I've been vegan for almost 40 years, and I've met a lot of angry vegans and some vegans that weren't necessarily the nicest people. And I believe that part of healthy living is being balanced in body, mind, and spirit. And to live a healthy life, you also need to live a compassionate life. So I took out the Oxford Dictionary and I looked up the word compassion, and right there was Rae's picture. Now, I want to read you an excerpt from Rae's blog. Now, just keep in mind that she was reciting an incident of animal abuse, but please don't hang up because I am not going to even mention what it was because I can't deal with images or words either, but I'm just telling you this so that you'll know the context. So I'm not going to say anything scary or bad. But in witnessing this horrific incident of animal abuse, she writes, "There are times I wonder why I come here. I ask myself what the point is. Why travel to a place and plant seeds of compassion in a society that embraces violence as a righteous part of its heritage? My answer to myself is that while I am on earth, I will make every effort to not turn away from an open door. If there is a door wide open in front of me, inviting me in, and beyond that door is some form of suffering asking to be addressed, why would I not walk through that door? Adults and families walked by and did nothing. The door was open and they chose to look the other way. These doors are around us all the time. What we witness in our days is presented to us as an opportunity, how we respond to our work while on the planet. We are not powerless to make a difference in the world unless we choose to be powerless. We are all leaders when we choose to be. There is no reason to walk by that open door. Turn and face it and walk right in. You have nothing to lose and potentially a meaningful life to gain. And when I read that, I was almost in tears now. I had to read it like 10 times so I wouldn't. I thought that was just so beautiful because, even though I'm known for someone who speaks in the health area of plant-based, I became vegan for ethical reasons. You don't do it for health when you're 17. And I did a lot of stuff in my youth, civil disobedience and direct action, and I saw my share of it. And how do you, first of all, tell us who you are in case some listeners don't know. Tell us what you do, and then we'll address what you wrote in the blog. Okay, Rae?
Sure. It's great to be here with all of you. I don't know who you all are, but I'm glad you're here tonight. My name's Rae Sikora, and I have been really working on myself, trying to be more compassionate for a lot of my life. I stopped eating animals when I was 15, just because someone asked me a simple question in a leather store, and it changed my life.
What was the question?
It was funny. I walked in with this friend into a leather store after AJ. I had just downed a hot dog. We were in Chicago together, and I had just downed a hot dog with all the fixings, and we walk into the leather store, and I turned to my friend, and I don't know what made me say it, but I said, "Don't buy anything in here. It's dead animals," because there were like skins hanging and things like that. And the woman behind the counter was not cruel to me. She just asked me one question. She said, "Do you eat meat?" And my 15-year-old brain went, "What does that have to do? What does eating meat have to do with dead animals?" And then I got it.
Yeah.
And so I turned to that woman and I said, "No, I don't eat meat." And my friend looked at me like, "Crazy woman. I just saw you eat a hot dog."
Mm-hmm.
And, we left that store, and she said, "Why did you lie to her?" I said, "I didn't lie. I'll never eat meat again."
Wow.
I hadn't made the connection.
Mm.
And then I started visiting. I thought, well, I want to know what it takes to produce the items that I consume, the services that I support, everything, the entertainment I support. I started becoming curious. Oh, what am I really supporting? And when I found out about like what was going on in the dairy and egg industries by visiting places, I just would go directly and visit these places. And
Wow.
And I thought, nope, I'm not going to support those either. So I didn't even know the word vegan, and I was vegan, but I didn't know the word. I wasn't buying leather or wool or anything because I thought, no, I don't want my choices or my money to support this. And then
I feel the same way. But and you this hit you at 15, this hit me at 17, and yet some people live their entire life asleep and never wake up to these truths. So how do we get people? I mean, can you get somebody to be more compassionate? I mean, there is so much violence in the world, not just towards the animals that become our food, but just every area of where it comes to animals, even people. I mean, there's parts of the world where people, humans, women, children.
Absolutely.
So like I just don't get it, and I want it to stop. And what can we do about it? Because it drives me crazy. Because I had to stop being an activist. And when I read your piece, it makes me want to go out there on the front lines again. Because I was literally getting OCD from the abuse. Because these images would just stick in my head, and I would see them over and over again. And I did find though, Rae, because one of the questions I'm going to ask you is how to breach this subject, because I find there's a little bit of a divide between the vegans that are vegan for health and those that are vegan for ethical reasons. Because, I found, and this is just me, that I was vegan for just ethical reasons for 26 years, and only one person went vegan because of a protest or something I said. But the minute I did it for health, I got many more people in the door.
Yeah, I think that it's, well, we can address that health versus, going into it for ethical reasons, because I really do think that the idea of compassion, I really want people to question for each of their decisions. I do a lot on ethical consumerism, and I have this compassionate consumer wallet card. I want people to carry it around and ask these questions whenever they spend money or energy on something. And really, it is looking at all the aspects of compassion. So how does this item serve to support my own health, other people, the environment, and other species?
Mm-hmm.
And that every choice we make, we get to choose. We get to ask that. Oh, is this the best thing for my own health? Is this the best thing for other people, for other species, for the environment? And it's powerful. It's powerful helping people make those choices. I understand the despair of seeing the pain in the world and, all the suffering that's going on. I call it Earth School, and I think it's a very tough curriculum.
Okay, I love that.
School. It's really tough. I don't remember signing up for Earth School.
Yeah.
I'm like, who came up with this curriculum? This is really hard. I'm like getting my PhD in life.
Wow.
It's really, really hard. And yet I like to empower people. I don't go out there and get in people's faces and go, you have to do this, you have to do that. What I do is I try to find that most compassionate part of people, because everyone has it. Everyone has it. It sometimes is buried a little bit deeper, and it's a little bit harder to see in some people. But I feel like we get to be these like living invitations. We get to, instead of fighting people, we get to invite people in a loving way to a compassionate community. It's like, what a beautiful thing that we get to do. We get to invite them. So, I'll give you an example, because it can be tough with the humans. They're one of the toughest species. For me, they're the toughest species.
Oh, absolutely.
To hang out with. And, like, this is an example. We were at this large department store, one of those, like, Lowe's or something like that, Home Depot or something like that. It was Lowe's. Anyway, so we were going in, and these two people were coming out, a man and a woman, and they were wearing full-length fur coats.
Wow.
And I don't know what they were doing in that store, because that's like a discount kind of hardware store.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're coming out, and my partner JC and I are going in, and I said, oh, babe, I'll meet you in the store. I want to talk to these people. And he says, no, I'm going to stay out here. I want to see this.
Yeah.
And so then I follow them to their car, and they had a rental car from Florida. It was a sports car. And they got in their car, and I looked at the license plates, and it said, it was one of the Save the Dolphins license plates. They're like, so I thought, oh, okay, these are caring people. Perfect. And I knocked on the window, and the guy rolled the window down. He was in the driver's seat. And I said, hi. I said, you're from Florida. I see you're from Florida. And they had big smiles. They were like, yeah. And I said, you're just visiting Santa Fe? Yeah, we're visiting. And I said, and I see you have the dolphin plates. So you are both caring people. And they said, yes, we are. And I said, and you care about animals? Yes, we do. I said, fantastic. I said, I have an invitation for you.
Wow.
I want to invite you. The next time that you're at a computer, do some research on the amount of animal suffering that went into both of your coats.
Wow.
And I know that you are both caring people, and I think you'll be surprised at what you see. And he looks straight ahead then, and the window goes up.
Yeah.
The window's going up, and she looks right at me. She goes, thank you very much. And she was staring me right in the eye while she was saying that. And I said, thank you for caring enough to look into it, because I know you're caring people.
Wow.
And that was it for me. That's all I needed to do was to invite them. Like, we get to invite each other to do this, to be the best people we can be.
Wow. It'd be interesting to know whatever happened to them, if they ever did change. Because you kind of remind me a little bit of the Dalai Lama, except the Dalai Lama eats meat. But he has a saying that if after trying to save the world is lost, no regrets. And so I know it sounds like you really are going to be living a life with no regrets, because you do everything you can. And your approach to those people is sort of the exact opposite of throwing blood on fur coats, which is what some vegans do, which I don't think is really gets them to change. It just I think when you get people angry, they don't want to listen to you.
Exactly. Their defenses are going to come up more than, like, I picture this sort of like a door on someone's chest, that part of us, it's either open or it's closed. And it's very easy to do something to make someone feel like they're a horrible person, or for that door to close.
Right. I wish you would write a book on all, because a lot of the questions we have are on what to do in certain scenarios, and I try to think, well, what would JP do? What would Ray do? And it's so hard, because when you see abuse I mean, for me anyway, I don't want to necessarily act out with violence. I'm not a violent person, but I get so angry that I just, I mean, when I was younger, I mean, I don't know if I should put this on the recording, but I did do things like I stole dogs that were being abused from abusive situations and found them homes, because
That's a loving thing.
yeah, because I
That's a very loving
because
thing to do.
they were being starved and beaten, and I couldn't, the owner wasn't going to do anything. But then you think you do something like that, and these people that do that, they're just going to get another animal. And I just don't get how people can be unkind to animals, or a baby, or really anybody. But it's like, it just seems, I don't get it. Is really, I don't get it. And the minute I wanted to be vegan before I was 17, my mom wouldn't let me. But I mean, I made the connection really early, and I did eat animals, of course. And I love what you say, because you say that except for people that were born into veganism, everybody used to eat them.
Exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, a lot of the questions we have to be because we have Thanksgiving coming up. And so Sharon writes, like, how does Ray handle being at a family dinner when extended family is cooking and eating a giant turkey at their home? We bring our own food, but the sight and the smell of the turkey is nauseating and upsetting. And another one of our mutual friends doesn't even go. She won't even go to her own children's house because they're dead animals. And there are times that I don't want to go to barbecues because it's just, I don't like to be around the suffering. So how do you handle those outside eating situations in mixed groups? Do you just not go? Do you preach? What do you do?
And when I can, I host those events because everybody is really happy to not have to cook anything. So for years I had our family's Thanksgiving, I would host it and there'd be no animal products added and they were happy to come and not have to cook a darn thing.
Right.
In recent years I haven't lived where it's easy for them to get to my place. So what I've done is I have joined them when I can. And, what I have done is ask. We have 5 of us who are vegan in my immediate family. And, I've asked if we could celebrate without having animal products there. And if they want to have their own kind of celebration afterwards, it's okay. I don't go to events where animals are served. And I know that everybody's different on this. But, I had an interesting discussion with my father. He was really upset. He said, you're choosing your values over your family.
Interesting.
You don't care about family. You're choosing your values over that.
Yeah.
And I said, wow. I said, what would you think if I said you're actually choosing your taste buds over your family, which is what's going on. You're choosing your taste buds over your family because for one night, all that we're asking is to honor everyone in the family, everyone. And he said, well, that doesn't make sense because the majority of us eat meat. And I said, but it does make sense. If we're all of equal value in our family, it does make sense. And I'm not choosing values over family. I'm choosing to be consistent with my values.
Yeah,
it's really uncomfortable for me. I think like I could put it this way, and I've asked him this. He and I had a long discussion about it. My father's great, and he's a critical thinker, and I love him for that. And I said, if somebody in the family was serving a dog roast, would you still go to the meal and be comfortable seeing that dog roast and just eat the other things on the table?
That depends.
He said, no. He said, no, he couldn't do it. And I said, that would be choosing your values then over being with your family for that night. But it wouldn't mean you don't care about your family. It would mean you were caring for yourself. And you could do it with lots of things, like if you had a family member who had, say, human slaves who were serving the meal, and you weren't comfortable with that, and you said, no, I'm not going to go there. It's not that I don't love you, but I'm not comfortable being there with that kind of oppression going on.
So it's okay. It's okay to say no, and you don't have to say you don't have to be mean about it, but you can just because listen. Your dad's right that most of the people do eat meat in the world, and where do you draw the line? For example, I assume that most people, even vegans, don't grow their own food, so that we all at times go to stores, right? Grocery stores, whether it's Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. Well, those stores do sell animal products, so
Right.
I mean, there is a grocery store called, I think it's Viva la Vegan. There's a couple in the world, but for the most part, if you go almost anywhere, if you take an airplane, I mean, so like, where do you draw the line?
Exactly.
Because do I never go anywhere? Like, I went to get my hair cut. I go to a vegan hairdresser, but not all the products are vegan. She's not really using them on me. But like, how far can you go being an abolitionist is what I'm saying, and still live in the real world?
I don't think anybody has it down perfectly. Like, I usually don't even say that I am vegan. I say I'm practicing veganism because I
Interesting.
think it is a practice. Nobody is 100% vegan. If I'm driving a car with tires, there's animal products in there. There's animal products are hidden all over. None of us
Sure.
is this perfect vegan. We'd be like a beam of light moving through the air.
Mm.
None of us is. And so I try to think of it more as trying to do the least harm. So I look at those decisions each day. I work in the Middle East quite a bit, and that passage actually that you were reading about the challenging thing that I saw, I think that was in the Middle East.
Yes,
And
it was. It was.
yeah, and there, when I'm going there, I'm training teachers and principals in compassion and nonviolence, and I have 400 of them usually at a time, and I won't allow them to serve animal products to them. I have them for a week where we're in this training, and I said, no animal products. There's so many amazing foods in the Middle East that are wonderful, whole foods, plant-based, healthy foods, and delicious, and there's no need.
Sure.
But the people get very angry at me because for them that isn't food. They think that they're fasting, that I'm forcing them to fast, because if you don't have animal products, that's considered fasting. And they get really, really angry. I had one man shouted at me, and he said, "We don't want you here. We don't want your culture here." And I said, "Well, which culture don't you want?" And all of this is being simultaneously translated in headphones and microphone, and there's a translation booth. And I said, "Do you not want culture of compassion, or do you not want USA culture?"
Yeah.
Because I'm not very typical American, so don't worry about the USA culture. You're not getting that. I said, culture of compassion. If I never come back here again, it is where you are headed. This is how we evolve as humans. So your children are on social media, they watch TV, they do all of this networking globally. They are going to be bringing compassion into your house. If I never return here, compassion is coming.
Wow.
So how about you stay put and figure out how you want to respond when that next level of compassion comes into your life.
What part of the Middle East were you in?
At that point, I was in an Arabic village in northern Israel.
Okay. And I'm just so curious how you even got to go to something like this. I've been invited to speak on health in the Middle East, and my husband, who's very easy to get along with and almost never says no, put his foot down because he said, a Jewish woman in the Middle East, you're not going, especially because I have a kind of a big mouth, and I don't always say compassionate things like you. So I think he made the right decision. But how did you even get an opportunity like that to speak about compassion in an area that's not necessarily known for its compassion towards women or animals?
Or children, and I have had like principals of schools who shout at me in these trainings, I own my wife, I own my children, I own my animals, and you can't tell me how to treat them. It's a good culture for me to be in because I learn a lot.
Wow.
I ended up going there originally through an organization called HI, which is concerned for helping animals in Israel, and I wrote
that's so funny because CHAI is the Hebrew word chai. It means life.
Exactly.
That's
and I wrote a compassionate living curriculum called Sharing Home, and it was translated into Arabic and into Hebrew and into Spanish. And so I go there and do trainings with the teachers and principals, and wow, they've taught me a lot.
Wow, that's remarkable. You said a minute ago about doing things, either attending a family dinner with meat or not, about how it's important to do things that are consistent with your values. And I find that when you don't, it creates like what I call cognitive dissonance, and I actually have that with a situation in my life. And I presented to you, one of the reasons I want you guys to go to Summerfest is Ray teaches these workshops where it's like, it's almost like Dear Abby, where we can present, our situations to you and you tell us the most compassionate way to handle it. Okay, so I've been vegan for almost 40 years and my dog eats meat. I would prefer he didn't eat meat, but it causes me distress because of somebody that I love. It's not like your father where I can actually sit him down and have a rational conversation with him, because I can try to feed him vegan food, and then I've done it, and then he'll go literally 5 days without eating, and then I take him to a park and he'll go try to kill a squirrel or whatever, because he didn't come to me as a puppy. He came to me at almost a year old as a rescue. So on one hand, I feel terrible every day. Like, I mean, I don't personally do it. I make my husband do it because I can't be involved in it, but it bothers me, number one. But also what bothers me is this, and I'd like to spend a lot of time talking about judgment, because I think I'm a judgmental person too, but I get a lot of judgment from other vegans, like why I'm feeding my dog meat, like, and anger from them. So how could you please respond to both of those situations, like the way I feel and the way others feel about me for doing it? Because I don't want to lie about it. I mean, it's Summerfest. Like the first time at Summerfest, they were setting up the mics, and like I made a mistake, and I'm giving a lecture on sugar, oil, and salt, and I said, any questions? And it's like, do you feed your dog meat? And what could I do? I mean, I don't want to lie because that's not. But anyway, what do you say to that?
Well, I also think that people who are pointing at your inconsistencies or what they see as your inconsistencies, it's why I say the practicing veganism, because they themselves, I can guarantee you, if I visit their home, it's full of inconsistencies around caring for the environment, for wildlife, for all other species, for all humans. Our lives are full of inconsistencies. Nobody's got this down perfectly.
Right.
So I don't think it's helpful for them to come at you with that, unless they're saying, hey, I can help you figure out how to do this. Like my first thought was, I wish you were my neighbor. And I don't know if you want me to share this, but I'm going to share what I do about my dogs. I have rescue dogs.
Sure.
I used to have dogs who ate what I ate, and it was so easy. I would just make lentil soup, and then they would eat lentil soup, and they were so happy with it. Now I have 2 rescue dogs who are such carnivores.
Wow.
It's crazy. And there was no way that I was going to buy animal products. So I thought, okay, I got to figure this thing out. How am I going to do this? And also, I'm like you. I don't know if it's like being Jewish or what the deal is, but, we want happy eaters, human and non-human. We want them to be delighted with their food. So I caught wind of one of the natural food store chains, I won't say which one, who after their stocking crew goes off duty, they toss everything into their dumpsters. It's like 11:30 or midnight. And now I have my dogs eat vegan kibble, but on top of that vegan kibble is eggs, meat, cheese. Like you would not believe the amount that's thrown away. So there are 5 of us who go to this dumpster, and we bring buckets. We wash everything before we bring it home. We have a whole system. And we supply now, there's about a dozen homes who are getting all of the food for their animals.
Wow.
For their companion animals from that. And there are, because it's perfectly good food, often still in its cases.
Sure.
So we also bring stuff to a lot of the shelters here, the food pantries, and the food is fine. If there's one egg broken in a case of eggs, it's tossed out.
Sure.
There's a little wet corner. We had a week ago, we found 150 dozen eggs.
Wow.
In there. And, it's criminal. Like when I look at it, I see each egg as 24 to 30 hours in hell for those birds, and then it just gets tossed. So for me, it's sort of this way of making sure that it doesn't go to waste, that this does not go to waste. And my dogs are delighted now. They're just like, thank you, Mom. You're taking care of us. And, they're happy. So I wish you were my neighbor because we
Yeah,
always
me
have
too.
too much. We always do. We leave things behind often because we don't have a way to distribute everything we get.
That would be so cool if there was like like a website or a system or a way, because what you're saying, it probably exists by me. I haven't found it yet, but wouldn't that be cool if we could all find that kind of system, you know? And
Oh
it's funny, we're
yeah.
talking about not feeding our dogs meat, and Sparky just went like, don't you even think about it, Mom, you know? But I had this activist say to me, like, how dare I, because that chicken could have lived 20 years. But the reality is if I didn't adopt my dog, he would die. So, to me, it's not that I put one species over another, but it really causes me distress. And, I'm thinking next time I get a pet, I'll get a rabbit, because at least I don't have to.
We have rescued rats also. We have these rats who came from a pretty horrible situation, and they're great. They're just like whatever you're eating, I love. And
Yeah.
so they're totally vegan. They're very easy, and they're the little love ambassadors for the rat world. People who hate rats, they're like, rats, oh.
Oh, no, I
They
love
meet them, and they're so sweet, and they're smart, and they're just loving. And, people are like, I thought I hated rats, but I love yours.
They're very, they're also good. I have a niece that has 3 of them because she's so allergic that they're the only pet she could really have.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That's so great.
But, a lot of times, I try to, like, what's the word? Like, I don't really try to be in people's faces, but if they ask me, I'm going to say, what the truth is. And I usually have something vegan, like, that shows that I'm vegan. I never wear leather, for example. And I always try to, instead of having like one of these, there's some really horrific T-shirts out there that really turn people off to veganism. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I
do.
With the F, it's just, and I mean, even though I think that they're correct in what they say, I think it turns, because if it turns me off, and I'm pretty liberal, I know it's going to turn the average person off. But for example, what I'm known for is wearing these outrageous boots that I got. They're vegan. They're made by the Kuna Indians, and they're just everywhere I go in the world every day. They love my boots, and I'll say thank you. They're vegan, so I'll wear something, not necessarily a T-shirt that says vegan, but yet I do wear those. But something about me is always vegan. Linda Middlesworth, who should also be the queen of vegans, always giving me necklaces that say vegan. So I'll always do something kind of like that as an opportunity to talk about it. But a lot of people say, well, this is what I've been getting for 40 years. Well, animals eat animals. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, and you have a choice. What do you want to do with your life? Yeah. What do you want to do? A lot of them have no other choice. These animals who are eating animals, they want to live. Right. So what is the best thing for us to live, to really live? Mm-hmm. Like I eat plants. One of the downsides of the fact that I eat plants is that I have too much energy. And that's my issue, I have too much energy. I'm like a border collie,
Yeah.
I go hiking, I dance, I go rock climbing, I bike everywhere. It's like, oh my God, and still I have too much energy. And, it's a very nice problem to have when I'm 59 years old. It's great. And so I feel like, oh, I have a choice. And it's also thinking about the individuals. Like for me, I think, wow, it's not about a species. It's nothing like that. It's about, could I cause harm to an individual needlessly? Could I kill an individual needlessly? Would I do that myself? No. Why would I have someone else do it? I wouldn't. I wouldn't have someone else do that. And I think we're always going to be facing certain dilemmas. People who rescue cats, a lot of them that I know, they feed their cats other animals. And their hearts are in the right place, just like your heart is in the right place with your dogs. It's like we have to just stop and go, oh, what can I do here? What is my best choice here? What's the kindest choice here? And it's not always very black and white. It is difficult sometimes to figure these out. This JC and I, my partner JC, we were in a massage school waiting room because we get these senior citizen massages. I love it. And we get like discounted massages at the school. And this woman comes flying in on a Saturday. And she's a little bit late. And she goes, oh, sorry, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. I have a booth at the farmer's market. And she plops down next to me. And she says, oh, my God, we sell local, organic, and, we're saving a heritage breed. And then I just kind of looked at her and I said, you're saving a heritage breed? Yes, we're saving a heritage breed of cattle. I said, oh, that's nice, so you don't kill them. And she said, no. She said, well, we're saving the breed. I said, oh, so you're saving the breed but not the individuals. And she said, well, yeah. And I said, well, how is that for you? Here is my deal. I like to understand other people more than I want them to understand me. I just ask them a lot of questions, like, oh, tell me how that is for you. So I asked her, how is it when you have raised these calves from babies and then you have to kill them?
Oh, my gosh.
And she said, well, I don't. She said, we send them to Colorado to be slaughtered there, and it's a 10-hour drive. And I said, oh, is it still local? And she said, yes, of course it's still local. And I said, well, how does that feel? You've raised them from babies, and you send them off for a 10-hour drive and then to be slaughtered. Is it hard? And she got kind of quiet, and she said, well, we would never kill Herbie. And I said, who's Herbie? And she said, Herbie was a 4-H project, and everybody loves Herbie. And I said, oh, so how is Herbie different from the other calves who you send off? What makes him special? And she said, well, he's Herbie. And I said, yeah. I said, how is he different? What makes him so special? And she was kind of quiet. She said, well, I don't know. And I said, I think it's that you named him and you've chosen to care for him.
Wow.
Is that it? And she said, yeah. I said, but really, the other ones are just like Herbie? And she said, yeah. And I said, is that hard to send them off? Is it hard for you? And she looked right at me and she said, yeah, it's hard.
Wow. I mean, how do you even, are you like a psychologist? I mean, how do you even think to go, how do you know to say those things? It's amazing. I never would have thought that kind of.
Well, you know what it is? It is the wanting to understand people and have them explain to me how their choices feel. How does that feel to do that? I really made this choice some years ago that it was easier to do my education and activism if I did it in a way that was about understanding others. And in me trying to understand them, they also get to understand themselves and look at their own choices. So we have, here in Santa Fe, we do a lot of activism and a lot of education. And even when we protest the circus, we don't do it as a protest. It's advertised as an invitation to a compassionate community. And we invite people to come, and every sign has to reflect inviting people in to a compassionate, caring community that cares for all life. And it's not about hating people, and it's not about fighting people. And that is the mood of everything we do here. And it makes it easier for us to keep doing it, so it's a little bit selfish. But it also has really great results. We have people turn around who are going to the circus, park their car, and join us.
Wow. Terrific.
And so, yeah, for us it feels great. But it is really about, AJ, I think people want to be heard and they want to be understood. And do you know who Fran Peavy is? Did you ever hear of that one?
No.
She was working in New York City at the public schools, and she would live with families before the school year started so she could understand different cultures. So she lived with a Hispanic family. She lived with an African-American family. She's like, I want to know these cultures. I don't want to work with these kids if I don't understand them. And then what she realized is people want to be heard. So she took a sabbatical. She made a huge banner, and it said, American Willing to Listen. And she rolled it up. She got one of those airline tickets where you can travel around the world and stop wherever you want.
Wow.
And she traveled the world. She would park herself in some public place, a park or a plaza, and she'd unroll her banner, American Willing to Listen. And some places people would line up for days just to sit on a bench with her and tell their story. People want to be heard and understood. And so just the power of that. I work in a lot of rough public schools doing programs on compassionate living and on animals and the environment and our choices. And I really noticed it there, like, wow, if you listen to these kids, the roughest kid, the kid who usually brings a gun or a knife to school or whatever, if you just really let that kid know, I want to know you, I want to hear from you, it changes them completely. And
so her name is Fran Peavy. Can we look her up somewhere? She sounds awesome.
Oh, yeah. You Google her, you'll see her. She's amazing.
And how do you spell Peavy?
I think it's Peavy or Vey. I think it's Peavy. Yeah, if you Google her, you'll see that she's an amazing woman.
Wow, that sounds incredible. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Chef, I've run this ultimate weight loss program in Los Angeles, and I've been doing this part with JP for about 6 years." And people say, "Oh, Chef AJ, you're so nice." And I'm like, I'm not, because I'm so nice to animals, but I don't feel like I have compassion for people, because, and I don't mean all people, but people that hurt animals, that eat animals, that work in. I mean, I don't want to say like I hate them, but I don't. But like, to give you an example, because one of the questions is I feel like this is my own private therapy session, because how do I become less judgmental? Because, for example, let me see how I'm going to put this. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I don't want to say the worst one, then people will hate me. But okay, so you
nobody's gonna hate you.
If I tell you what I was really gonna say, I'll tell you privately. But I'll give you an example. So I'm Jewish, and when you're raised Jewish, Jews don't hunt and Jews don't wear fur coat. Now Jews do eat animals, and they kill them in a way that supposedly is humane, which I don't believe it is. But even from a little kid, was raised Orthodox, and most of my family was Reformed. Jews are not supposed to wear fur coats or hunt. They're supposed to be a compassionate people. However, and so I was raised that hunting is wrong. And whenever I hear on the news that there's a hunting accident where the deer ends up, killing the hunter, I'm like, yeah, that's horrible that I think that way. But I do, and I don't mean to be unkind, but it's like, you shouldn't be trying to kill the animal, and they're defending themselves. And so what I'm saying is that, people say, well, what if that was your nephew? Because my nephew actually does hunt. It's not like I'm happy that they died, but there's a part of me that feels that justice was served, is what I'm saying. And I don't think that's good that I'm thinking that way.
I think everyone who knows the reality of what humans are capable of in terms of violence and, violence towards humans and non-humans and destruction of the environment, we all struggle with this. We struggle with, it's much easier to love other species than our own species. I just think it's really tough. And what I try to do, it's not always the simplest thing, but what I try to do is remember that, 5 minutes before I was vegetarian, I wasn't. I was eating a hot dog.
Right.
I grew up, I was eating so many animals. I ate tongue. You know what tongue is? Like,
absolutely.
And then my brother said, why do you eat that? It's tongue. And I said, no, it's not. And I pointed to my tongue. It's not tongue. He goes, it is, you dummy. I was just a little kid,
Yeah, I know.
And he says, go ask Mom. And I went and I asked, and I said, Mom, what's tongue? She said, it's a tongue. I said, whose tongue? She said, it's a cow's tongue.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, why would you feed us a tongue? She said, I feed you all kinds of body parts. And I was like,
I know.
I just think it's very, very hard. Like, I grew up, I just think that people do what is their familiar. I had a really dear friend when I lived in Maine, and he was my hiking buddy. He was also a hunter. And what I learned was that we each have these ways we're compassionate, and we have ways we're not compassionate, and that we have to be open to sharing with everyone, and we have to be open to the idea that everyone is doing their best with what is their familiar. So Patrick was, a lot of my friends really judged me harshly because I would hang out with this hunter.
Interesting.
And he was my favorite hiking buddy because it could be an ice storm and I could go, let's go to the top of the mountains. And he'd go, yeah. And he and I were really close. He was much better than my progressive friends at respecting my veganism. We would go out to eat after we'd go hiking, And I said, Patrick, you never order any animal products when we eat together. Why? He said, I would never do that to you. I would never do that to you. And some of my more progressive friends, they didn't care. They'd eat, whatever. They'd order milk, they'd order cheese, they'd order meat, whatever. And he wouldn't. And he also had, moved in with his mother and father because then his abusive father wouldn't abuse his mother as long as he was living there. So he gave up his own independence and his life to protect his mother. I mean, he had all these ways that he was much more compassionate than I can imagine being. And so I think we're all just this mix, and we're just doing what we know. We're just doing what we know. And, it's very hard to not be judgmental. I judge our whole species.
Right. I just feel like I feel like that I am judgmental in general, and I wish I don't know what it feels like to be you or John Pierre, but it seems like you are happier and more balanced with the way you approach the world than the way I do. And it seems like it's just natural to judge, and like when you see somebody that's wearing a red dress, you notice it's a red dress. It doesn't mean it's a judgment, but you notice things, and sometimes those things turn into judgments because of
I think everyone judges. I mean, John Pierre, me, everyone. We are looking. If I didn't judge, I probably wouldn't be doing this work, because just the fact that I'm doing this work is saying that I see a way that I think is more compassionate than how the world is. That's a judgment. That is a judgment right there. So I think we are all judging all the time. Last year I had PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I had it, and other friends picked up on it, and they said, you are gone. You just have to get help. You are gone. And it was because of some things I had witnessed in the Middle East, and they tore my heart out. And if I wasn't looking and judging, if I could just look and see the world as the illusion that it is, if I could see everything's just subatomic particles and I'm assigning value to those subatomic particles that are going by me, if I could see that, it wouldn't have upset me. Not at all. But I'm judging. I'm looking and I'm going, that should not happen to that goat. That should not happen to that horse, to that little boy, to that man who's paralyzed from the waist down. I mean, the things I witnessed when I was there on that trip. I always witnessed a lot of harsh things, but this one was every day, bam, 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 bam. And I came back and I couldn't sleep, and I would meditate, and I would just be filled with anxiety and pain. And so that comes from me looking at the world and judging it and saying, this shouldn't be. One of my best teachers is a woman named Byron Katie.
Yeah, loving what is, sure. That she says that's what all suffering is, from not accepting what is.
Yes, and I have volunteered at her schools, many of her schools, just like, okay, I need to learn this. And then I get it for a while, like, this just is what it is. I'll plant as many peaceful seeds as I can in it without going crazy. But she has helped me a lot because it's very hard to love what is. I live in New Mexico. You might as well drop the new. It's like Mexico. There's trash everywhere, and, it's very third world in New Mexico. And, it has helped me so much to do the work with Byron Katie, because now I can walk on a trail, and some of the trails that are really in town, there's trash everywhere, and I used to be like, I hate this trail, damn trash, I hate it, and now I just walk through, and a friend and I we either pick up the trash or we make art with it.
That's what John Pierre does. It's like you guys are like cloned from the same. It's unbelievable. Every time we walk, he picks up trash everywhere he goes.
Well, it's so fun, AJ. I hope you come visit one day, because
I'd love to.
One path that I used to take that's right near our house, and it used to be trash everywhere. There is no trash anymore, but now there's these beautiful works of art that my friend Tom and I, and now others, it's like a community art installation. We take whatever trash we find that's usable in our art pieces, and I'll have to send you photos because it is so beautiful. And we've just taken what we used to see as ugly and made it beautiful. And now it's a joy to walk through there. And now we're like competing for trash. Like, oh, where'd you find that bed spring? I really love that. It's great. It's great.
That's just such a perfect example, what you just said, of how you make the world a better place. Instead of getting mad about it, life gives you lemons, you make lemonade in a way.
Yeah, but I can't always do it. I mean, I have rough days. I have chosen to witness some of the worst that humans are capable of.
And that's why I had to stop, because of you got PTSD from it, I got OCD from it, which where it would play over and over some of the things I saw. In some of the images I can't even get rid of, and I spent thousands of dollars going to psychologists and having cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's a lot better, but boy, it is PTSD, and it's tough. Did you ever think about taping? When I say taping, filming some of the things you saw in the Middle East and putting it online? Because they say in the Genesis Awards that cruelty can't stand the spotlight, and letting, if these images got out to the world, maybe people would do something about it.
Yeah, I have photographed a lot of it, and yeah, I should just put it out there. I have photographs of a lot of it.
I mean, as long as you're witnessing it, I mean, that, not to go back or anything. Boy, that's incredible. So John Pierre wanted me to ask you, well, two questions. He said, how come you guys aren't married, you and John Pierre? Basically, I think he was joking. We know you're married to JC, which incidentally enough, JC, initials of Jesus Christ as well. Interesting that you'd marry a JC. He wanted you to talk a little bit about palm oil, because you know a lot about that, and a lot of vegans don't realize, because again, we didn't even talk about the divide. I feel there's a divide between the health vegans and the ethical vegans, and there's so few of us as it is. I feel like Rodney King, can't we all just get along? There's some ethical vegans out there that have actually said, if you're not vegan for health reasons, don't bother being vegan. And I think that's one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard, because the last time I asked the animals, they frankly don't seem to care why they're not being killed. They don't they don't say slaughterhouse. Well,
good for you.
So the thing is about palm oil, what people, I think vegans should be healthy also, because I think that's a compassionate thing to do, is to eat a health promoting vegan diet as opposed to a junk food vegan diet. But a lot of them eat things like balance and a lot of treats with palm oil, and I don't think they realize that not only is it bad for them, clogging their arteries, but ethically it's bad. So if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about what you know about palm oil.
Yep. I mean, I can definitely talk about palm oil, but I also want to address the whole thing about being a healthy representation of veganism or an unhealthy representative. Because I think that it's, if you choose to be vegan for ethical reasons, which was my path in this, my life brightened up so much when I went from just ethical to healthy, making healthy choices. It was one thing when I first became vegetarian, I was living on marshmallow cream and peanut butter sandwiches called fluffernutters.
I loved that when I was little in Chicago. That used to be my lunch every day on white bread.
It was my lunch every day with red cream soda. I mean, crap with crap.
It's so
just
we are a pod. Yep.
But then it shifted for me, because we're a very small percentage of the population.
Yes.
And so my first reason for choosing healthy was, I want to be a healthy, energetic, positive example. I want to be a poster child for veganism, so that it'll be irresistible. People won't be able to resist it because they'll feel so good, and they'll be able to hike mountains when they're 90. And, that was my goal. And now I'm there, and I feel the same as when I was 20. And I think that choosing a healthy life has been one of the most powerful choices that I've made in terms of inviting people to this community that cares for ourselves and the world around us and all species. Do you know who Tim Van Orden is?
Yes.
Okay, so I heard him speak once, and we were both speaking at a conference, and I happened to walk through the room when he was giving this example. And he said, what if I said I'll give you a free car? And people are like, yeah. And he said, here's the catch. You just get one for life. And people are like, he said, so pick what kind of car you want. You're just going to get one for life. How are you going to take care of that car? And people are like, oh, I'm going to put the best things into it. I'm going to maintain it perfectly. Okay, our bodies, our planet.
Yeah.
We get one for
Right.
life. And it was so powerful. That image for me was so powerful. Like, wow, we would take better care of the car than we do of our own bodies. That we get one. This is it. So that whole element of like, I don't think there should be any divide between, to be an ethical vegan means that you take responsibility for being also a healthy example of what the choice means. And I think that that's like up there at the top with the importance of who you are in the world. You're a human billboard. People are looking at you. Oh, so are vegans energetic? Are they happy? Are they healthy? People are watching. We watch each other. That's what we do as humans.
Yeah.
But so I had to address that I think it's really important, even if you consider yourself an ethical vegan, that you do everything you can to be healthy and energetic and loving, because that is part of what we're here to do.
Oh,
Palm
well
oil.
said. Well said.
So the palm oil thing, it's in so many products, but what is going on in the palm oil industry? There is no sustainable palm oil. It's impossible. Forests are cut down to create these palm oil plantations, and I visited a few of them that were supposedly sustainable palm oil plantations, and what I witnessed was horrendous. The species who were once living in these rainforests that were cut down are killed because they are considered competition for the palm oil fruit. They'll eat the palm oil fruit. It's all they have. Their place was taken away. Palms were planted for the palm oil fruit. And some of it is just heartbreaking what is going on. So it's orangutans, but it's many, many other species too. And
yeah, I heard elephants as well,
Absolutely. Their habitats are being destroyed at this alarming rate for palm oil. So I have, there are recipes that I make that call for some kind of a butter. And, I'll make them for parties or whatever. We don't really consume that stuff at home, but I will make them for parties and whatnot.
Sure.
And I used to use this stuff called Earth Balance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just stopped. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to use that. I'll create my own with coconut oil. And so I created my own kind of, quote, butter, vegan butter. And it's very empowering to say, oh, my life, my money, my choices are not going to support this kind of unnecessary violence and environmental destruction. And it's so empowering to do.
And it's important that people know this, because especially if they are ethical vegans, they need to know this, just like they need to know if they're drinking alcohol, that much of the alcohol that you buy is filtered through the bladder of a sturgeon or has crustacean shells, and that much of the sugar you buy is filtered through animal bones. So if they are just ethical vegans, I think this is important. You had mentioned something called a compassionate consumer card at the beginning of the program. Where can the listeners get that?
Oh, it's on our website. I think it's under the resources on our website, which is www.plant, like planting a seed, peace, like peace sign peace, daily.org.
PlantPeaceDaily.org. That's so great. And can people hear you anywhere other than Summerfest, or is it just basically that's the one place that you're going to be, that we can come hear you speak in person?
I do a lot of speaking, and I just got back from 6 days, 5 cities in Ohio, and so I do a lot of speaking in different places. I'm trying to cut back a little bit on that because I love being home.
Sure, me too.
And I'm even terrible at, I'm not a marketer, so I don't even, rarely is my schedule even on the website, but people can always reach me through my Facebook page. It's just Rae Sikora, and if they want to know if I'm speaking in their area, I can let them know when I'll be in their area. And,
Well, you're just so inspiring to me, and just what you said about inviting people in a loving way to a compassionate community. I just want to keep that thought in my head when I get angry and judgmental and about to respond from not a loving place. And I wish you would teach more. You need to teach this stuff to maybe to vegans, to people. I mean, because it's just so important. And I think I don't want to say it's missing from our community. I think it's missing from the world, really. And our community is part of the world. So I just thank you so much for the work you do, because you just it make me want to be more loving and more kind. And I can't believe you're 59. When are you going to be 60? Because I thought you were like in your late 40s at the most.
Oh, you funny bunny. You
Yeah,
know, I still feel like when I was 20. Like,
yeah,
really, I feel
yeah.
the same. And it's ridiculous. Like, my friends keep getting younger and younger and younger because that's who I like to hike with and go rock climbing with and whatnot. And so I have all these, like, dear friends here, and they're in their 20s because that's the ones I like to hike with. And JC called me his border collie because
That's
I need to
funny.
run around a lot.
So when is your 60th birthday, so we can come make you a big party?
Oh, you're so sweet.
Is
My
it next
birthday's
year?
in April
April what?
26th.
You're a Taurus.
I am through and through.
And yet you sure are so. You just think you're incredible. So thank you so much for being on our very last call of the year. You're our 20th. The 20th interview we've done. I just thought it was just a very special way, to end the new year on a note like this, because it is a time of year that's very stressful for a lot of people, and it just anything that we can take away from this call to be more loving people. Because again, if you're vegan, you have to have some compassion if you're making those kind of choices, whether you know it or not, right?
Yeah, of course. And because it's this time of year, if you go on the Plant Peace Daily site, there are a bunch of articles that you can share about redefining tradition at this time of year, how we can reinvent these holidays to be about compassion and not about consumerism, and about really genuine sharing, like the kind of memories that you'll never forget, like you'll forget all those gifts that come in packages.
Wow. Well, thank you, Ray, so much for being on the call. I look forward to seeing you at Summerfest, if not sooner. I would love for you to come to LA and speak at one of my conferences. And thank all of you so much for listening to Healthy Living with Chef AJ. I wish you all a very happy, healthy, and compassionate holiday season. And
I love you, AJ. Thanks for all you do.
And I love all you guys out there. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. And we'll see you next year on our first call, January 6th, with Dr. T. Colin Campbell. Happy holidays, everybody. Bye, Ray.
Bye, AJ. Love you.
Love you.